Hello, guys. Back from the dead. So, Scott, Fat Ninja, man. Oh man. Dead man. What's going on, guys? All right. Okay. So, little summary here for those who are going to probably catch this later on. YouTube put me on a ban. They said it was going to be like 90 days. I fought it, so now I'm back. They didn't really send me a message. They basically was just like the account was locked and I couldn't use Hangouts. I couldn't record using Hangouts or anything. So I'm back. But that's not the important thing. The important thing is we're getting back to the usual. So yeah, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, whatever time it is, you have Monday through Friday, that kind of thing. So yeah, I was on suspension because of using a clip from the HBO show Game of Thrones, Battle of the Bastards, which I spoke for like, you're allowed to use things for educational purposes, etc. And the stream went on for 59 minutes as we talked about war, and I wanted to use the clip from Battle of the Bastards to describe how we could use those different dynamic elements in role-playing games, and they dinged me anyway for it. Robo bot it basically, right? I'm sure it was just a, hey, if it ever shows up, cancel the channel until further notice. But no sooner did that happen that HBO and Game of Thrones was like, oh no, it's fine, you can use it as long as you don't make money off of it, which I wasn't. And then YouTube, with their algorithms, still blocked the channel until I appealed it. And then they said it would be up to 90 days and no further contact thereof until I got back on the channel. I've been checking it, here and there, and then boom, it unlocked. That, of course, timed with the fact that I was on vacation, so I'm back now. So whatever, that's the past. We're back to normal again. It'll never happen again, trust me. So thanks, guys, for joining in. Okay, I skipped Monday just because I couldn't log in. But this week it's going to be death, dying, undead, returning from the dead, all that kind of stuff. We're just going to talk about that and little permutations thereof. You guys already started talking in the chat about zombies and that kind of thing, and the bigger issue of the social impact of returning from the dead and the dying. Dead Man Storyteller says there's also the White Walkers from the Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones setting, though they use different rules, or Z Nation Zombies, where Takers are a new add-on for the latest season. And there's always so many different little permutations of like zombie infections and people coming back from the dead. For example, in The Walking Dead, there's whatever infection or virus or infestation that spread means that anyone killed that has not taken a brain injury will rise again, whether they were bitten or attacked or not. It's just it's part of the environment, which is a little bit of a change from zombies, where you had to have been bitten first or infected through chemicals or some kind of bacteria, or whether it was a curse or something of that nature. But if we're going to talk about zombies, you can talk about the types of zombies there are. Okay, your basic fast or slow zombies. You've got those, so you got to decide: are they shamblers? Do they just walk slow, and are they a slow but this unstoppable moving force, so that yes, you can outrun them, but they never stop. They just keep coming and they just move slower. Or are they sprinters, right? Are they the ones that just come around the corners and tackle you like excuse me, like the rage zombies from 28 days and 28 days and 28 weeks later. Um, those, in which case, or even oh, what's the movie? World War Z, where they're almost like they scramble. They're like a hive. I mean, they just pile on top of each other. They jump off of buildings. They can knock over vehicles and slam down doors like in a big rush or something. So you can have that decision. And then on top of that, um, are they? Uh, how long do the zombies live? Right? Do they still deteriorate at the same rate that or decompose at the same rate a human who has died? Like, is it a couple of weeks before they just become skin and bones and then they crumble? Do they last longer because of their infestation? In 28 days later, they were more like, you could call them rage zombies, or I believe one of the original zombie movies wasn't about zombies. It was actually about like a drug addiction of sorts. And is it that they're still alive but they're just mindless, like they don't have control over what they have? In World War Z, um it was based off of a rabies infection. So in that sense, it was like they were trying to spread the rabies. Yeah. They were trying to spread the rabies by trying to like to bite other people to spread the virus, and so the virus was working through them. Scott Post says Left 4 Dead airborne rabies variant, which calls regular zombies and specialty ones. And Deadman says Walking Dead does have them decaying, and they have shown that. Like, I think they show the age of the different zombies. So you have like your recent dead, and then you have some that are like shambling because maybe their joints start to fray, and then of course you have the skeletal like ones. Yeah, it's kind of the recent season of Walking Dead, they were altered by chemical waste. So you can have zombies that are spreading poison or disease. Maybe they're infected with like like rot grubs, maggots, snakes, insects, that kind of thing. You could have the telltale sign of zombies if they're being picked on by like carrion feeders, like vultures or ravens or something like that, maybe circling overhead. So that may be a possibility as well. Also, zombies are is the zombie infection and or thing that created them, does that affect animal life as well? Or in a fantasy or high tech setting, does that affect aliens? Does that affect bears and tigers and giraffes or elephants or whatever, horses? It all depends. But in Z Nation had radioactive zombies. Yeah, you got to have like, you can really play with them and really play with the fact of whether they're fast or slow, slow movers, fast movers. And then you may even, that would be different, kind of weird to mix the two. So maybe they're like the newer zombies or newer turn zombies are fast, or it could be a variation off of that disease that makes one portion of them fast and others just like shamblers. Who knows? But the social impact of it as well, because zombie movies, television shows, whatever the case may be, is more about the keep holding on to and losing your humanity. So although it seems kind of dynamic, like, oh man, we're just going to have a big fight with a post-apocalyptic world, whether it's fantasy or modern or future with zombies, it it can get, there's a time and place for it, because it could get a little bit like monotonous. It's the same group, and just like in a television show, as a television show, people were complaining that it's getting boring because at this point in the show, humanity has gotten used to them so much so that um, they're somewhat ignored in many ways. I mean, you see some of the main characters just turning their backs on on the zombies because they know they can outrun them. They know how to scavenge for food and supplies. I mean, their survival instincts are so heightened that it's a side note. It becomes part of the background. Yeah, speed zombies are a crazy thing, especially considering the fact that they're mindless. So they don't mind running across, zombies catching on fire, running through, oil, and then trying to tackle you, or jumping off of buildings and try to bite you or something, or or jumping headfirst to try to, which is kind of strange. I mean, but cool um in World War Z, where you see the zombies are literally trying to bite through glass and trying to bite through rubber and stuff to try to get at people. It's kind of weird to throw yourself head first to try to bite someone, but I love it. But the social impact too of in especially in fantasy, where um, many enemies and even NPCs and the player characters want to have the ability to raise the dead. And of course, you have yourself. I want to make a good necromancer, right? It's the the player that wants to like walk around with an army of undead because it's just a cool gaming thing, right? And it's fantasy fulfillment, okay? And even in video games, you could play necromancers and you have this army of undead. But the problem with it is that for the most part, death rites, the idea of of people dying, is extremely, and touching the dead is extremely taboo. If not in most cultures, in all cultures, there is a formula for handling the dead. Now there are some tribal. You can point out the exceptions, right? There's like tribes that were cannibalistic because they thought they could absorb the souls of the people that have died, whether it's their loved ones or their enemies and enemy nations, and draw them into themselves. But for the most part, there is a clear distinction between the living and the dead, and the death rites that they go through. And it is extremely disrespectful, at a minimum, to use somebody else's loved one as your plaything, as well as the idea of the dead spreading disease, being cursed, drawing other predators and animals into your area, the smell in and of itself, to allow the dead to move on to another world, and cutting that off. Now, of course, some people would say there's a difference between, like being a puppet master and just animating bodies versus bringing their soul back. But most cultures don't see a difference between that. And culturally, that's sometimes that can be far more important than the actual reality of the situation. For example, in our own modern day, uh, the donation of your organs when you pass is considered very taboo. Despite the fact that common sense wise, you're already dead. You can just give your organs, and if you believe in the afterlife, you go on somewhere else. What does your body matter? But there's extreme taboo against it, with whether it's through legacy or religion or what have you, that people want to be whole when they pass, i.e., not believing in um, donating your organs and such, because it's a social thing. It is a cultural thing rather than one based on simple common sense. Scott Post says, love those Walking Dead human fights where the zombies are an environmental hazard. In game terms, maybe they don't treat them as creatures, but mini skill challenges like grapples. And that's exactly right. It's they end up using, it's the humans on humans, and then they either get caught in a situation where the zombies are this force that's growing behind them or around them or through them, or they use them as a weapon. Hey, we want to take out this rival enclave, so they knock down the walls, and then they use sound and fire or whatever to draw them gunfire, what have you, or speakers or music or something to draw the zombies towards the other group. And then, of course, there's fighting, there's gunfights, there's fist fights, and then the zombies come in. And like you said about mini skill challenges like grapples, and I can imagine that it would get tougher and tougher, right? So you've got the human on human fight, and they're shooting at each other, they're getting in fist fights, they're fighting each other on catwalks, and the zombies come in. So usually it's only one or two, right? One turns their head, they see them, they start walking towards them. So do you separate your attention from who you're fighting? Do you take a defensive posture against the zombie? Do the two people fighting against each other temporarily team up to stop the zombies? That's the tension there. And then, okay, so you got one or two zombies and they start fighting each other off. And maybe the skill check to do it isn't that tough, right? It's the first round. So one or two come around the corner, it's the first round. Maybe somebody splits their attention and wants to shoot at their human enemy and the zombies, but then 16 more come around the corner, and then 37 more, and then 85 more. And so the skill challenges become difficult, far more difficult. The spaces where you can run start to lessen. If you, let's say they jump into a car, or go into a catwalk, or they jump into a dumpster or something, then now you have the environment starting to shift and change, right? Hey, the catwalk was a pretty safe place until the zombies start trying to pull the rickety rusting metal support beams down, and now all of a sudden you start have to make balance checks to hold on, or maybe dangle before they start to grapple you. And then if they grapple you, then maybe if you fail your grapples, now here's the chance that you can get bitten, or the ability to escape the grapple becomes far more difficult. So whether you're using like 5th edition, maybe the grapple's only like a DC or DC/strength of 10, right? Because they're weak, they've been around for a couple of weeks, so these are older zombies. But then maybe next round it's 12, and then 14, 16, 18, or something of that nature. Or if you fail your skill check, maybe you get bitten. Those kind of things. So you can always add those in and use them as environmental hazards, which is my specialty. It's my favorite. Which I absolutely would do that. Because if you start counting out like zombies and skeletons and start making die rolls, it sounds cool, but after a while it just becomes a very boring dice slog as the DM starts rolling 87 rolls to hit. And then I would just make them into description wise, there's many of them, but I would just turn them into hazards, or in a strange way, like massive creatures. So you can give them, instead of 3 hit points apiece, you just give the whole mass of them like 300 hit points, and then just start describing how 27 are killed by the swing of the axe, or 47 are killed by firing a rocket launcher into them, or something of that nature. And then, of course, you have all kinds of things. You can add plenty more hazards in there as well, like especially in modern day. Yeah, just treat them. Dead Man Storyteller says swarms. Just treat them like swarms. Just reskin. Use the rules for swarms in whatever game you're playing. There's plenty of swarming creatures in a monster manual and SRD or whatever. So you got like swarming insects, swarming bats, swarming snakes or rats or whatever, and just reskin them. And you can also add in other things. So if you have a modern setting or fantasy or futuristic setting, don't limit the attacks to be in a flat zone. Scott posted, I'd make a zombie bite give you like -2 con, and zombie disease save once an hour, or -2 con repeat until 3 saves in a row, or death. And you see, that's the thing, right? You by what you've stated, you're creating a tension. It's a tension generator. Save or die is fine, but the tension isn't there, right? It's like, oh, I saved, I'm okay. And then the tension's gone. I saved and died. Oh, I'm depressed, but the tension's gone. But if you have that continual, like, all right, you have to make another save, and each point it's harder and harder to do it. Then you have that countdown. It's always why it's it's the gambler's high, right? It's why people love sports, where people watch basketball for the buzzer beater. It's the two teams that are closely matched, and there's 1 point on the line, and there's 27 seconds to go, and are they going to make it? It's those things, and that creates the tension. It's the gambler's high, where it's like, okay, all or nothing, everything's on the table. One throw of the dice, one spin of the wheel. That's where the tension comes in. That's where everyone's sitting there looking at the die rolls, looking to see what's going to happen. If someone makes their, misses their save, and it's like, oh no, I've got two more chances. And the thing is that those elements are already in the game. So if you, for example, in 5th edition, you have your death saves. Now you could just essentially reskin the death save from the zombie infection, right? Like, you're not dead. I'm just use those same rules and port it over and just go, listen, you have to make the save, or you're infected, or you die, or you get pulled in, or however you want to do it. However you want your specific zombie infestation to go. And then you can say, listen, if you miss it, the next one's -2, et cetera, et cetera. Scott said, DBJ, you just successfully explained to me why people watch sports. I never got it before. And it's really, I mean, it's that, thanks a lot, dude. Yeah, it's that, sure, there are people who, especially like when it comes to sports, right? It's like, oh, my favorite team, it's a blowout, blah, blah, blah. But really, when you see blowouts like in baseball, like 14-0, or like soccer and it's already 3-0, or hockey or something, it's 5-1, and you go, nah, there's only 2 minutes left. There's not really. And you see people getting up and walking out the stadium, right? The tension's gone. But when it's pushing it to that limit, and that's why sometimes you'll see like base jumpers, extreme sportsmen do things like that, where they're like climbing mountains and diving down deep and going out on the high seas and surfing. It's achieving that one moment that you can't repeat again. And how close can you get to that razor's edge? It's just like watching trapeze artists and people that walk on high wires, or juggle, flaming flaming torches and bowling balls and chainsaws and stuff, right? It's like your heart's pounding because one mistake and you're lost, but you're building the tension up to that point. Dead Man Storyteller says, day before yesterday had 4 baseball games with 10-0 finals. Yeah, and sorry, kind of boring, right? I mean, it's cool to see it, like, you hear about pitchers getting shutouts, right? How rare it is, and it's like, oh man, he purchased a no-hit game and whatnot. But when you see it, you appreciate the skill in it. But at the same time, like, the tension is drawn away when the other side, they could never earn 38 points or whatever. In baseball, you can't, to make up 10 points in like, two innings. It's not going to happen. Whether it's like watching a soccer game and the one team just blew them out, and you're like, it's a minute and a half in a game. They're not getting 3 goals. It's not going to happen. Yeah, my team won, but I'm going to get in the car and go home because I can beat traffic, and then people start thinking about that, right? They're like, their mind's already off the game. They're like, if I get out of here early, I can leave 15 minutes early and still make it home. And it's that tension. And I feel like the environment, I know I'm segueing on Thursday, but I feel like the environment is the best way for you to create that tension, and using like those skill challenges, those saves, those ability checks, score checks to ramp up that tension. For example, of course, the longest running show about zombies, The Walking Dead. There's Z Nation, other things. The creators of the shows have to keep the tension going, so they create things where someone jumps into a dumpster and you hear the the clawed hands, skeletal hands, like smacking on the windows and walls, where someone climbs up high and you know the zombies are going to rip it down. When they go into a building and the hands start trying to reach through the walls or the drywall, or you know that with enough pressure from the bodies, they're going to knock down the fences, because it's creating tension. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the fast zombies. I believe me, they're awesome. But that's more of a shock and awe rather than the slow the slow building of the tension, right? Where you see the main characters in the beginning, they can turn their back to the dead, because you still have to have the interaction between them. They're still acting, right? But as the numbers start to build, they know there's no way to stop it. They know that, sure, we have a barrier that can stop 30 zombies, but 200 of them, they're gonna push it down. So you have to do things where you have to draw them away with sound, where you know that no matter what man-made structure, most man-made structures cannot hold back the tide of humanity if that tide of humanity is mindless, where one single human being cannot, knock down a chain link fence on their own, but 200 of them together just pushing on it, just pushing against it. Of course, all the ones in front start getting, their soft bodies get pushed like like mucus and soft bone through the gate, but then the ones behind them just walk over top of them. So you always have that idea of adding a layer on top of it, where the players may have to duck through narrow openings, to jump into cars, to hide underneath cars, to try to put in front of them barriers to get somewhere. And of course, they're being distracted because they have enemies. It's the humans on humans, and then you have the distraction of all the enemies around them. And that's, I think, where the tension starts to build, whether gasoline or oil starts to spill and someone thinks of the idea of lighting them on fire, and then someone else is thinking, well, if you light them on fire, they're just going to be flaming zombies. And sure, they may fall down because, their flesh or something burns, but maybe for 1, 2, 3 rounds, 5 rounds, or, take a D10 and roll it. That's how long they get to walk around on fire going after you before they crumble, and I guess they don't have a muscular structure that could support their bodies. However, their support, it doesn't matter. The point is that's a great way to create tension in the group as things start to build bigger and more massive, and then the fear starts to come in. In the beginning, it's like, player characters like, whatever. I got my gun, I got my shotgun, I got my baseball bat, I've got my axe, whatever. But then it's like, you can take care of 5 of them. There's 10, and you're like, I'm gonna have to pause. I'm gonna have to pause to go after it. Okay, now there's 27. Ooh, I'm gonna take up defensive position. All right, now there's 83, and you're like, ooh, we need to get the hell out of here, right? We need something big. I'm gonna run over them with my truck, whatever. Okay, bam, you blow through them, and you run them over, and then your truck gets stuck as it gets stuck in the horde of zombies, and the wheels start to spin because the bodies are like mud under the tires or something. What are you gonna do? Like, I'm gonna get out the door and climb up on a roof. Okay, you climb up on the roof of the truck, but there's so many zombies around you, they're starting to pile up. And you roll a die. 4 rounds, they're going to pile up on top of each other to get to the top of the truck. And so this great idea in the beginning, 3 rounds ago, now it's the 4th round, and they're like, why the hell did I do that? Dead Man says the zombie horde from a couple seasons back from The Walking Dead. Yeah, there was, where were they? I think there was a zombie horde stuck down in a quarry, like a strip mine or something, and another conclave had trapped them down there and led all the zombies down into the quarry and used trucks, big, those big bulldozer style trucks, whatever, to keep them down inside of the quarry. But there was a huge, massive horde. What else did they do? They did a to two automobiles on a highway. They strung a cable between the two cars and then decided to drive both cars down the highway with the cable, like slicing the zombies in half. Um, Last season, they used the zombie horde to get the zombie horde to attack the enemy encampment, to go through their walls, and they took out the little satellite areas and stuff. Always the kind of thing. I didn't think we'd be talking about zombies so much. I kind of did segue into other undead, but we're fine. But yeah, just being able to, I just think in not just horror, but in action and in gaming, creating tension is another thing. Scott, you also mentioned about having making a save once an hour, and strangely enough, instead of having to make like a save every round, where you kind of compact the tension down, if you draw the tension out longer, it becomes it not only just becomes a difficulty, but it also actually becomes part of the setting. It becomes this overriding fear that can overtake your players and such. And what I mean by that is, if you force the players to make rolls every hour, this gives them, let's say they make 3 rolls in that hour, right? Just like you mentioned before, or they die. As the tension is stretched out, it allows the mind to create the horror of what might happen the next hour and the next hour. So because in the classic zombie thing is a main character gets bit and doesn't want to show anyone. That's always the thing, right? They get bit on the arm, and they get bit on the shoulder, and they wrap it up, or they go, "Oh no, I'm fine," and they look down, and they've been bitten in the side or the stomach, and they know they have a fatal wound, but they don't want to say anything to anyone, and no one notices it or whatever. Doesn't notice them getting pale and getting those huge sags under the eyes, that kind of thing. The thing is that they stretch the tension out, because you, as a viewer or reader or watching a movie or whatever, it doesn't matter what it is, at some point that main character is going to turn. And it's always, are they going to turn when they're hiding in a closet? They're going to turn then. Or they're driving away. Are they going to turn then? And of course it always happens at the wrong moment, right? It's the, hey, we got away. And then one of their friends turns and bites the driver, and the driver goes, skids off the road and off the side of the road. And now they don't have a vehicle. And they were traveling 50 miles an hour away from the zombie horde. Now they have no vehicle. The vehicle turns over. Someone breaks their leg. Now they've got to stumble across. And of course, the zombie horde they thought they were getting away from is right on their tail. Knows exactly where they're at, all because that one person started to turn. And as that person turns, the tension starts to ramp up. It's like, is it going to happen now? Oh, not yet. Oh, he made the roll. Is it going to happen now? Oh, whoa, not yet. And of course, you got to rest, right? The humans have to rest. It's like, I got to get some sleep. You got to get those short rests and long rests. You got to take a nap. And hiding up in the tree and up in the rafters and in locked cars and in, I don't know, drainage tunnels and all those kind of things. That's cool, but zombies are despite being mindless, they are determined. And you sitting up in that tree, you might go to sleep and think you're not being discovered, but however the zombies can detect you, whether it's by sound or scent or whatever the case may be, that bloody wound, or maybe they smell the blood or something, they're like shark-like, all of a sudden now they know where you're at. And now when you wake up, you're surrounded by dozens of zombies under your tree, or you're scampering through the woods and oh no, well, there's 12 behind me, I see 3 more in front of me, and one of my party members decides to pull out their shotgun and starts shooting at things, or this is a fantasy and one of them is a spellcaster, loves using that fireball, but then that fireball just it's like a beacon to get all the others to come towards them. So it's handling those things. So yeah, dead man, hope you don't snore. Yeah, right. Don't snore. Don't eat bad burritos. Don't eat sour. Don't drink sour milk. Don't eat those eggs. It smells bad. Because man, at night you're just like, just letting the rear end toot toot. Yeah. You might have to instead of scavenging for food and guns and ammo, you might have to put those little tabs across the nose that open up your nasal passages so you don't snore. Or get one of those dental dams or whatever it is that you put in your mouth to keep you from it's like yeah. Oh man, that's hilarious. But yeah, but strange enough, that might be a cool thing though, to try to look for one of those things. Oh man, that one guy who's like he's like the special forces character. He's like, man, I'm armed to the teeth. Everyone else is playing like average people, like school teachers and bus drivers, and I don't know, shoe salesman or something. And you get the one guy who wants to be like, I'm ready for everything. I was prepared for a zombie invasion. I've got all the skills. And he's like, so what's your weakness? He's like, I don't know. I picked snoring. I didn't think that was important. Like, oh no. Foolish Kiwi says, I always did zombies as not great at seeing in daytime, since their cornea would be deteriorated, but would be able to see lights, even dim ones like cigarettes or camp embers, like a mile. And there is no limitation. See, like it got split. Kiwi says to continue, sees like a mile away due to light sensitivity, gives the players an oh god, night is coming feeling. And see, that's the great thing to play around with that kind of stuff, right? Like using of course there is no common sense when it comes to zombies, right? The Walking Dead, whatever. But being able to the play with the deterioration of our bodies, and what would that be like if we were still alive. And I really like that idea. I like the idea of being light sensitive, because of course as humans we have this instinctual fear of the dark. It's the unknown. It's what we can't see. We can't see hazards in front of us. There are many predators that hunt in the dark. There are things that we don't know. And when we don't know things, our minds create those fears. And imagine the dead just like kind of like swaying in bright sunlight. But when the sun goes down, it's like they can just see. I mean, it's like, oh, they just get hyper focused and everyone's wondering. You have to run from enclave to enclave, from security to security before the sun goes down. Because when that sun goes down, man, they will just burst forth, which is exactly like the movie Legend, based off, I forget who wrote the story, but where daylight is cool because in Legend they were more like vampire. They were considered like vampires. But anyway, daylight kept them away. But when that sun went down, those shadows got long. It was just like, oof, they just became burst zombies, right? They were just came out of the woodwork and start going after people. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And that's a great variation off of just as the 28 days later, like the rage zombies, where they're not really dead. They're just they're overcome with it's like their adrenaline system has got them to the point where they just want to rip people apart, using like light sensitivity, using strange infestations in their body. I mean, do your zombies vomit up something? Is it just a bite that spreads this disease? If you poke out a zombie's eyes, can it still see you? Does that have anything to do with it? Most of the time, we talk about the classic thing, hit him in the head, headshots take him out. Is it because of the brain stem? And the zombies cut in half, they, you see them pulling themselves across the ground. What happens to their legs? Do their legs keep kicking around? Or, I know it's kind of morbid to think about those things, but it's still possible to use that to ramp up the tension, right? So if somebody tries to hack a zombie in half, the lower body part could still grab onto someone's ankle and pull them down and make them trip and fall so that the other zombies can jump on top of them. Foolish Kiwi says voodoo zombies are cool too, where they still know how to bash doors with rocks and stuff like that. And that's the other thing too. Sometimes different media will think of, like, do the zombies remember what they were doing or what their purpose was in life? I played in a game, 5e game, West Fantasy, where there was the cursed desert, the cursed wastes, and anyone or any living thing that died there woke back up as a zombie and would attempt to mindlessly pursue what its last intentions were. So plenty of the zombies were looking around for water. And so some of the zombies would wander off into the desert, and it would be like zombie families and zombie, camels and such. And they would be wandering the desert looking for water. So that meant that many of the oases in the desert would end up having these zombie infestations surrounding them or going towards them, and so they really weren't safe at all. And so you could have zombies where they still have a little bit of their intelligence left, whether it's picking up a rock or knowing how to twist a doorknob or climb stairs or ladders, or even being able to pick up items like rocks or sticks or clubs or swords and still fight with them. And of course, fantasy, you have wizards, necromancers that animate skeletons and zombies. So of course, many of them are like armored and armed, and they can still use weapons and things. In many ways, rationalized because they're being instructed by or given some form of motivation by their creator. But who's to say that like an ancient curse or some small bit of their intelligence is still left in them? And that would be pretty brutal. You might not want to make hordes of zombies like that, but that would still be insane to have like, hey, we locked the zombies in the room, and then the zombies are pulling the tabs out of the door frame so that to get the door hinges out. They're just like, nope, we're just going to use our fingers and pull the little tabs out of the door hinges and take the door off the hinges and then get out. Or there was a silly, I think it was Family Guy or something, where this slightly different, but the velociraptors were locked in a room, and you see the velociraptor takes a piece of paper, sticks it under the door, knocks gently on the door to get the key to fall down on the piece of paper, pulls the piece of paper back under the door, takes the key, unlocks the door, and then comes out and goes, "Rah, rah." You'd have been there. Not funny the way I described it, but anyway, you could have them doing strange things like that, using the zombies helping each other up to higher levels, like acting like a cheerleader pyramids or something. Foolish Kiwi says, speaking of zombies and water, zombies walking along the bottom of lakes where you can't see them in murky water, trying to pull and flip your raft over. Hell, even just because they go underwater doesn't mean they stop, right? I mean, just imagine, like, you think you're safe and you're like, oh, we're going to get to this island, or we're going to get to the other side of the river. And you realize your boat is just literally inches over the fingertips of nothing but like a mass of zombies beneath you. And then all of a sudden you just hear that banging under the boat, that scraping of fingers and everything. And of course, the bottom of a lake or a river or something is not even. So as you start to come towards shore, they will have the ability to reach under the boat or a raft or something and just flip you over. That'd be so nasty. You got to worry about being grappled, being infected, drowning. You can't see. That's nasty. That would be terrible. And of course, now the zombies know where you're at. Guess what they're going to do? They're just going to walk out the water and come after you. And as speaking before about having light sensitivity, it could be that they are sensitive to the dim light under the water, and the only reason they haven't come out of the water is because it's daylight. But as the sun sets, they just shamble up out the water to come after you. That'd be pretty nasty. And of course, zombies underwater, zombies on fire, zombies on tall ledges, zombies radioactive, zombies they can't really carry around acid. Usually you think of zombies being destroyed by acid, but just giving them strange abilities as a side effect of them being dead would be really nasty. Dead Man says, the storyteller says the White Walkers do that in Game of Thrones in order to lift the dead dragon from the bottom of the lake. That's right. Because they're not affected by the cold. They're not affected by drowning. Just take a big chain, walk the dead body of that dragon out of there, and of course turn him into a ice dragon. I don't think they've never described it, and I think most Game of Thrones fans are like I don't know what the hell just happened, but I think that's cool. But it's like, is he breathing ice, or is it like a white fire? Because it's destructive and has force to it, but it doesn't generate ice or something. Doesn't matter, man. That's so cool. And and even in the non-human undead things like undead tigers and bears and undead dogs and things, you can always do that. You can always have where that would really surprise the PCs, where they see the voodoo zombies are on the are far away, and the PCs are like, oh, they're just shamblers. They can't come after us. They're not very fast. We can outrun them, and give them the finger, and then all of a sudden you see these dogs come out of the woodworks and start hunting them down and running at them at full speed at 40 miles an hour. And the PCs are like, what the holy, the Draco Lich. Yeah. George R.R. Martin, definitely a D&D player, right? Maybe not going to say it, but definitely part of it, right? That it's such a cool thing. I can't wait for this last season. Although kind of don't want the last season, because then it'll be over, and then all of our favorite characters are probably going to die one by one. But yeah, Game of Thrones, man. I know some people were like love hating on it, like they're just like, I'm not going to watch Game of Thrones, or Game of Thrones sucks now, or whatever. But who cares? I love it. Foolish Kiwi says soldiers on undead horses that don't fall over when you spear them. It just rips a hole and they keep charging until they fall apart. That's another thing too. Like, it's hard to capture, to really grasp. Is the idea of like, your spears and your arrows really don't do much to them. And even in Walking Dead, like there've been a ton of The Walking Dead where they've been like impaled on sticks, but the stick breaks and then they're still walking because they still have the stick impaled on them. The one Enclave, they used zombies and they stuck metal spikes all over their bodies so that the humans couldn't push them away, because simply walking into them would get them pierced and stuff. What was another one? Using molten metal and lead to pour over the zombies so that you couldn't shoot them in the head. Right? You pour the molten material, or you put motorcycle helmets on them or something like that, and so they can't be shot in the head. Sure, they can't bite you, but they can still go after you. So you could put like helmets or gladiator helmets over top of the zombies or the skeletons. Vince is totally missed the start. Yeah, Vince. Yeah, I'm back. I the ban has been lifted. I'm no longer being spanked. They're allowing me to live broadcast again. I can now use um 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 Hangouts. The trash dump. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, the trash dump. It's just um there are just some cool things. Hell, uh Shimon in Walking Dead, she was walking around with two zombies. She cut their arms off and had chains around them so that the her walking with the zombies kind of hid her from the other zombies and kept them. It gave her protection, kind of like an aura of protection, to make her seem like the other zombies that were casually walking around. Um, yeah, I'm teaching myself OBS. I have a Zoom account. I I have a Twitch account too, but I never use it. And uh, I'm still thinking of using another streaming service and then stream it onto YouTube. But for right now, I wanted to get back to this, so I'm basically actually because of JP, because JP was um uh Jared Jared Premont, he was telling me about helping me to teach me use a little bit of a OBS Studio, and so I'm just basically teaching myself to use it, and using some tutorials just to get the little, get the little lower thirds, get some graphics in there, maybe get some things so I can. So, really, Kitty, really, sorry guys, you can't see the cat quite a bit, but yes, my cat jumped up on my lap to get in front of the computer because that's where my attention is at. Sorry about that. But anyway, we're coming to a close anyhow. So, guys, thank you for joining me. Thank you for sticking by me. Thank you for. I'm actually, in a certain way, I'm kind of surprised you guys got notifications on this, because YouTube's kind of funky with the notifications. Like, if someone disappears from your notification aura, it kind of you stop getting those notifications even if you hit the bell. So yeah, Vince, everybody, yeah, I'm back. And the rest of this week is me back from the dead, so I thought I'd talk about that. Also, maybe next week I'll use that as a theme. Before asking for other themes, I was on vacation. I took a cruise. Here in the States, we are close to the Caribbean. It's just south of us, so I took a Caribbean cruise. The wife and I. Something we've been looking forward to. We're kind of cruise addicts, really, because we've been on cruise before. Great experience, and I love learning about the little things people living on islands go through, the culture that they have versus giant mainland living. So yeah. So anyway, I'm going to draw this to a close. I really need to keep these down to about an hour. So I really appreciate you guys sticking with me. Thank you so much. Um, uh, I think on Creators Conclave on Sundays, with Darius, on Darius Jana's channel as well. We may talk about something that came up with Roll20. I don't really want to put it on the main topic line, but we'll talk about something with Roll20 and identity politics and all that kind of stuff. So we'll save that for like a Sunday. I think it's kind of foolish, and I love. Part of me is is like seeing the comedy of errors in many ways. I'll end it with saying, like, hey, guess what? Welcome to how many of us feel every single day of our lives, right? You think you're being quote unquote discriminated against, and it's just like, look, I wake up and you see it in people's eyes and their attention, and you fail to realize that it's the micro aggressions that happen every single day when you feel like you're part of a minority group in a a larger group with larger people. I just think it's kind of funny. It's a shame too that, you know, this day and age people don't have enough common sense to at least not just change the way they think, but the words that come out of their mouth. So, but you know, if it's roll 20s lost, whatever, not a big deal. But anyway, guys, oh man, can't see the chat, guys. Thank you very much for just being a part of what I do and where I'm at. Guys, continue everything in the Discord. I did announce this in the Discord, and I'm trying to think of some way to honor everyone that's part and parcel of that, so that I can be part of it as well, and give something give something back to everyone. That just says preach. Foolish Kiwi says everybody have a good day. Always like to stay up for DBJ stream. Yeah, just as long as it's a PG. Anyway, guys, be careful. And as always, have a very good one. And one last thing. Why is it that you don't see people in these zombie shows put something on their forearms or around their neck to keep from getting bitten? I never understood that. Doesn't make any sense. Why would you not do that? There's plenty of like sports equipment that you can wear so you don't get bit. Man, they walk around with like bare chests and arms and stuff.